Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third and final Cracker Barrel of the legislative session. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring it. And we're down to two. Apparently we scared Reed off last time.
He's got a family deal. Yeah.
So we have Representatives Lee Schoenbeck and Roger Solon with us. Again, the rules, if you will. This is a question and answer session. Keep your questions short, to the point. If you have a statement or something you want to say, these two gentlemen will be glad to listen to you afterwards, but for now, let's just keep it to questions. And let's start with a statement. The big news, the education bill, I suppose. Let's let Roger start since he has the microphone.
Good morning. On behalf of Reed, he talked to both Lee and I yesterday, and he has family here in town. He was going to try to make it here for a few minutes this morning, but he may pop in. I don't know what his status is this morning. I haven't talked to him. Interesting week, to say the least. For those of you that made the trip to Pier, we really do appreciate it. Thank you. It was duly noted by the overwhelming crowd we had in the galleries, so we thank you for that. Thanks for taking time out. Dr. Juddy, I asked some of the educators, I said, who's running the school today? Did you give them the day off? You gave it to home? Oh my goodness.
We're not going to go too long.
Well, I'm glad that you're all concerned about wind energy and joined us this morning. Because I knew it was either that or my new haircut. It was an eventful, exhausting week. When I try a jury trial, I'll lose 5 to 10 pounds. I stepped on the scale this morning, 5 down. One more week of this and I'm going to be a size 2.
Shoes?
Yeah, shoes. I think those are IQ points. All these stupid people on TV saying 2. I don't even know what that means. It was a busy week. I mean, I guess we'd rather have questions. We could tell stories probably all day long. Some of them that would surprise you.
Oh, why don't you tell us where we are with the bill? It lost by 1. You, Lee, brought it back, and it's going to be voted on again on Monday.
I made the motion to bring it back. I needed help from 35 friends.
He's going to say no, really.
Okay, here's the deal. We knew that was going to be in fact, many of us exchanged emails. We knew it was going to be, in fact, I think I got an email from all of you. We knew it was going to be one vote. And the vote counts were, I mean, you couldn't have been more dead on accurate. We knew there were 46 with us. I do the math. 23 against us, and 1. Well, counting the one that was missing as a no vote. That we knew there was 1 who was thinking about it but wouldn't say. You just gotta. So whichever way it went, the other side was going to reconsider. That just was never going to be a question. So you guys probably didn't know who the 1 was, but I know when I was talking, I'm looking right at Reverend Scott Gregg or Josh Klum from Mitchell, and my whole speech afterwards, one of the governor's staff said, "Were you like talking to the Mitchell chamber or something?" Because it was all about Mitchell looking at Josh, or Rapid City looking at Reverend Craig. Well, Reverend Craig didn't vote with us, and so we were 1 short, and then we moved to reconsider. We knew we'd have votes to reconsider. And then when we made that motion, it was intentional to calendar it for Monday. Unless you think this all doesn't make any sense, Leslie can tell you after each of these, we've met in the gallery, and I said, this is what's going to happen. It actually, in a weird sort of way to people that don't live in that fishbowl, it actually does make sense. And it's actually pretty predictable. And so we set it for Monday so people could have an opportunity for reflection. And but we knew, I didn't believe it when I was told, so that's why I didn't. But in caucus, you're not supposed to talk about what people say in caucus, but I think you have to talk about what you say. So I'll tell you that in caucus, when I argued why we should reconsider, I said 2 people are going to change. And I believe the majority leader, I know the majority leader knew that too. because I had been told just before I walked in that Reverend Craig was going to change. And then they want to know if we'd vote right away. I said, I'm not, you can't trust because then you burn your bullet. And so then when we came out of caucus, out on the hall, Scott Craig, Brian Gosh was right there on him. So I knew he knew. So when you heard him say on the floor, nobody's going to change their mind, he knew that wasn't true because he'd already been told. And then Scott left the Capitol and went home and issued that news release. And so, but that, so that means we're gonna vote on Monday. It means that a group of us are gonna get together again Sunday night, and I provide the room, so I don't have to buy the beer. It's kind of a nice arrangement. You're always busy, and you can come. And we're gonna plan. And I will tell you, it won't be any secret, I don't think. And Roger's got a sheet here. I'm gonna give this back to you. Maybe you can talk about that. Our emphasis on Monday is going to be about this phantom budget cut plans. I mean, talk about disrespecting the members of the Appropriations Committee, that somehow they missed $70 million every year for the last how many years. Don Hager, one of the people that's saying that, was on the Appropriations Committee, and apparently he missed it too. I can tell you it doesn't work that way. There isn't $70 million. There is no alternative plan. It's a lie. It's a fake. It's a phony. And we've been saying that all along, and that's the excuse some of them are using. And they're going to hear from appropriators on the floor of the House on Monday saying why that's just not true. And they're going to take it apart line by line by line. And so the folks that are using that excuse are going to know it's not, there won't be any doubt. And if, you know, when you get new information, you should consider, you should analyze, and leaders that don't do that, you know what you call them? Call them Custer. And the problem is, Custer took a couple hundred other good people and some horses down with him. And that's what happens if you're not willing to reanalyze your position. But why don't you tell them what the Appropriations Committee has explained, because we do math in the Capitol, even if some people can't.
We learn math.
Yeah.
We really did.
It's not that Common Core math, it's the real stuff.
This is the real deal.
The nuns didn't teach Common Core.
Yeah, you know, we were both parochial school students, okay, so we had those nuns, you know, I still have ruler marks on my knuckles. And
I think I saw a nun come in here.
Oh, no, had an awesome upbringing. The appropriators started through a process to see how they can come up with the replacement dollars, you know, the plan B, so to speak. And I have a list here, and you know, every year, every department comes up with their budget request and budget increases and so on. And so we have to come up with, what, $70, $80 million in this whole deal. And not to mention the property tax side of it, but just to fund the half penny portion. Let me run down the list here. Bureau of Finance and Management, $12 million. Now, $4.5 million of that is another bill that the governor had out there called Movement to Market. And essentially what that are some extra dollars that would prevent industry from going into state government and stealing those employees out to industry. Sound familiar? Okay, so you take a state engineer, young state engineer, who I have a friend whose son just started with the Department of Transportation, got a job as an engineer with the Highway Department. And, you know, I'm not sure what his salary is. However, out in industry, you can get paid a lot more. Sound familiar? Okay, so there's $4.5 million, $4.3, $4.5 million of that compensation package that was going to be used for that. Okay, so if we strip that out, you think the governor's not going to ask for that again next year? Okay, so we're just kicking that can down the road. Let me move down the list here.
They were kind of boring.
Yeah, they really are.
It's a long list.
Well, it's 3 pages. 2.5.
This is a list of potential cuts to get to $70 million, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Bureau of Administration Maintenance Repair, they're almost $7 million. Legislative audit, that's the group that oversees all of the departments and audits all the departments, making sure they're on track.
Because we got no scandals that we have to watch Monday.
No,
We're pro scandal.
Human Services, 2.7% provider inflation, 1.6 million.
Because the people at Human Services, they're overpaid, the people that are taking care of those disabled kids. We gotta stop that now.
Yeah.
$8 is too much.
Yeah. Social services, Medicaid utilization for clients, almost, well, $6.7 million. Mandatory provider inflation, $4.2 million. 2.7 provider inflation, $9.8 million. Providers to 90% of cost, $1.2 million. Child care direct assistance, $858,000.
Somewhere in there is TANF.
Let's see.
It's all appropriations jargon on these sheets.
Exactly.
But it's affecting people. This is not like some budget dust laying around.
Drug DUI courts, almost $1 million.
Because kids are spending too much time learning not to drink and do drugs. We have to stop that.
Department of Health, Public Safety,
We got too much of that.
yeah, military maintenance repair for the armories. Here's one, dual credit for education, $565,000. Birth to 3 adjustment, $1.1 million. Instructional reading coaches for $345,000. Post-secondary state aid, $1.18 million. Post-secondary tuition buy-down, almost $1 million.
Better stop, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot. Who came up with this list, guys?
You know, and it goes on and on and on.
It was the appropriations committee, but because they use real numbers and real programs. You can't just make this up and say, I'll go find 70 million. It doesn't exist. You got to cut somebody. If somebody's not squealing, it's not a cut.
This whole list of all of the expansions, it comes up to $88 million. So if we want to peel $70 million out of there, it's going to hurt a lot of different areas across the state.
Yeah, I'll ask the first question. On Monday, this comes to a vote that you cannot be reconsidered again, right? You can only reconsider once, so this will be
This is
it for the House, and then it would go over to the Senate, right? Okay. All right, any questions? Yes?
The question is, provided the reconsideration works on Monday and one vote has switched, the 3 education bills all have to really come together, or I don't think it will work. The 2 in the Senate that passed out of committee Friday, and then the House bill funding it, they all have to really come together for the whole governor's Blue Ribbon Commission to work. What is your thoughts on all that happening, especially with the 2 Senate bills?
We don't have the Senate bills yet, obviously. They're over there. But, you know, I don't think you ought to assume those bills are going to look exactly, well, this one doesn't look exactly like it came out. I mean, it's a process. And there will be some, actually, the more interesting debates are going to be on the policy issues and tweaks that come in that regard. Those are in the Senate bills. I mean, those are majority votes, so they're going to pass. But there's a lot of debating. Wayne Steinhauer, from a new legislator from Humboldt, he does spreadsheets, and I know they're good to write on the back of for notes because they're long, but I mean, he can actually use them. And he was at my desk, and he does it all the time. He's just brand new legislator. And I mean, you know what'll make you scream, and there'll be people in the room here that won't agree with this because you'll be on the other end of the spectrum. But it's the people that are like 5, 6, 7 years teaching, making like $30,000 a year. I get chewed out when I use the words I like to use to describe that, and since it's on the radio, it comes out of the wrong end of a chicken. Chamber like to chew on items. But it's there's a real problem with, and he had the thing, and he was showing me the mean and all those words I forgot from statistics class. But there are some school districts that are outrageous what they're doing, and we probably have to be tougher about what they're gonna have to do. Because there are some places, and we get the emails, it's embarrassing to hear these people that have been teaching 10 years, and they clearly would make more money if they had started at McDonald's. I mean, those are all gonna be the debates we're gonna have in those Senate bills coming.
You know, and one of the things that I really wanted to see in 1182 was an accountability portion of that, and I've shared that from day one with everyone here. Part of one of the Senate bills, I think Nicholson's amendment had that accountability feature in there, so he peeled some of the information out of one of the Senate bills, and we actually amended 1182 to include that. Okay, once we have that account, you know, that's where if the school district gets money, they don't pay their teachers, they have to pay part of it back and so on. Okay, that, along with Lee's amendment, I was comfortable with the accountability portion going into 1182. So, you know, we're looking at the Senate bills, but they have to act on them first before we get a shot at it.
Something, and Roger makes a good point, and he was one of the ones that pushed hard for this, that accountability, you know, legislators shouldn't just sign off, and I mean, that's irresponsible, say, yeah, I like it all. That's a moronic approach. I mean, you ought to read it, study it, be critical of it. And Roger was one of the people that did that, and that accountability amendment was because of people being critical of whether they would be, when they voted on that bill, that they know those funds would go where they said they would go. And we got to have that debate the last time we were up here. I don't think there's any question about it, but it does now. And I want to brag on one other thing. The amendment we put on to put the percentages in the bill, which is a big change from the way the bill was drawn. The prior bill didn't say what you do with the growth. Sales tax grows about 3.5% every year. Who's going to get that? State government, or was it going to go to what we all thought it was? Well, it now is all captured in the bill. And the tech school piece, the technical, for 20 years I've been hearing, and I always thought there was nothing we could do. Your dad and I could sit around and have people before you bitching at us, and there was nothing we could do about how to have competitive salaries. And you know, we view that as a missing link. I think that we now have a permanent, sustainable way to keep our technical institutes competitive. And while his dad and I may have, Roger actually came up with the language that's in the amendment that went on the bill on that topic about competitive instructor salaries. And I think that's going to be a big thing. Nobody's going to remember that we drafted that when we're gone. 2 weeks from now, we'll be stupid for something else. But, no, but it felt good doing it.
Was it just an oversight that tech school instructors weren't included in all this to begin with?
Look, the Blue Ribbon Task Force primarily focused on K-12. And you know, they never made that extra step to include the tech schools. Back to the amendment, the accountability portion, I know we had that debate, you know, the last time we were in this room, and talking about accountability, and that's what I wanted. But it's not only accountability at the school district level, it's accountability at the state level. Without the amendments, we would have had an extra $107 or $110 million go right straight into the general fund and available for any of the appropriators to, you know, start plugging some of those holes for anyone else. The accountability meant that once the dollars get to the general fund, that we had to allocate that for teacher salaries as well.
I just can't resist. You got to thank Brian Gosh, by the way, because if that bunch of clowns hadn't been so obstinate, they wouldn't have given us the leverage and the opportunity to approve the bill. So I probably shouldn't have called those people clowns, but you really should. I'm going to get another phone call. You really should thank them.
This will be up on the public
See you, Brian.
website tomorrow, by the way, so let your friends know. Next question.
We're done.
Right.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
What is the argument for using the extra money created by the sales tax to lower property taxes?
We wouldn't have got the support from all of the business community in particular. I mean, this bill, the South Dakota Chamber of Commerce and the South Dakota retailers lobbied for this bill, and there isn't any doubt this is not if they were looking at financial self-interest, South Dakota retailers should oppose this bill. They're losing sales to the internet where they don't have to pay sales tax. I mean, these people stepped up and supported this bill, and the one thing they could say to their members, besides the fact that they care about the schools in their communities, and I think that's really why they did it, but the bone that they got is, if you look at our levies, ag has gotten a huge break through the years. You can thank Dave Knudsen when he was running for governor, when he sold out to think he could get Aggies to vote for a Sioux Falls lawyer. That didn't work, but we got stuck with what he did to the tax system. And those ag levies are just terribly low, and it's homeowners and commercial that are carrying the burden. And they're gonna get some of the break on this. Plus, we got the support of the South Dakota Chamber. I mean, they came out hard for a tax increase. And that's at least the one blow they could say. That's what
I'm looking at the chamber's notes here. The governor's asking for a half-cent increase in sales use tax. Is this the best way to pay for the education package? And 53% said yes, it's a stable source of funds. An additional 28% says yes, should do a full penny and solve more problems. So you combine the 53 and the 28, that's a pretty overwhelming majority of the chamber businesses that are wanting either a half or a penny sales tax increase to fund government.
We love the Chamber of Commerce, don't we? Question, Monday the vote's gonna come, predictions?
Game two.
I think the over and under's on 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so for 7. Actually, I think we'll get 3. I'm gonna say 3. Just so we're clear, I'm saying we're gonna gain 3, and you say we're gonna gain 2. Yeah, we're gonna win by 2. That's I got work to do.
Well, that's what I meant.
No, you didn't. That's what I think.
So I know Reed's not here to answer this question, but what's your sense of what where the Senate is on this? Nobody knows.
Were they in session this year?
Pretty sure.
Okay, here's another one we'll be angry I'll hear about. A week ago, our House Republican leadership skipped the Republican leadership news conference, which made us furious that they didn't want to have to talk about the education package. So, Thursday night, Scott Munster said, let you and I go to that news conference. If they skip it, we'll go sit up there. So we went in and we sat in the news conference, and Brian Gosch shows up with Don Hager next to him, 2 no votes. And they'd see us and they just look straight ahead. But the Senate leadership supports it. Corey Brown, Deb Sohl, so they're smiling. And when it's time for the Republican leadership to talk, the most important issue we dealt with it's a crucial issue. The dodgeball game that's going to be coming up next week to raise money for charity, that was the most important issue that they that was the only issue they talked about really, was the dodgeball game. And they kept looking at the clock because it's only a half-hour news conference. And so somebody asked a question about payday lending. Boy, the House leadership, they wanted to talk about, they were talking. Munsterman sends me a note, can they talk any slower? They were just looking at that clock, and there's 10 minutes left. And then one of the reporters said, what about 1182? And Corey Brown, the Senate, goes, that's a House issue. And Gosh says, well, I've already talked to the Senate and the governor, and we're going to get together on Tuesday. We're going to find alternative money. And then Don Hager jumps in, yeah. And then Deb Sohl, it's not there, folks. Let me explain this to you. And she talks. And, first Corey's polite. Corey says, well, we'll look at things. Then Deb jumps in and says that, no, it's not true. So then Hager he's got to jump back in. Oh yeah, we're going to do this and this and this. And then Deb says, you know what, let me just go through the numbers for you. And she lays it out, just lays him bare. There's a word for that too. I called her husband, and I almost can't say that one here either. I called her husband last night and told her she's a rock star, and she did this to Don Hager. And then Corey Brown was kind of irritated because they were sort of impugning that Deb didn't know what she was talking about. And he just said, look, you take out the $500 million we spend on education now, you're not going to cut that to get an increase. Take the other billion, if you want to get your number, you got to cut 7% out of all of state government. All the rest of it's 7%. And now Hager's over there, he's just reeling. And he said, well, there's $400 million in reserves. and now their time has run out, and Gosh says, well, time's out, sorry, and Deb said, just wait a minute, I think we can stay a few more minutes. Let me tell you about that 400 million. And then she starts peeling that apart. Poor Hager didn't know what hit him. And then when they got up to leave, I said, dodgeball, most important issue. So the Senate's going to be, their leadership is strongly supportive. We don't know what they're going to do, but.
Yes.
Was there, why would the three vote no and now they're voting yes, other than pressure? Was it a game? Was it a political move? Is it, or they didn't realize what they were gonna get after they voted no?
Let me, the three I'm thinking of, I'll use one of them's name because it's public, Reverend Craig. His wife's a teacher. He empathized greatly. He pondered and prayed dutifully. And I think in the end, Brian Gosh told these people there was another way to do it. And he's their leader. They want to believe him. And so some of them, fell for it. And I would say he was one of those. And afterwards, I think he just looked and said, what did I do? The other two I can think of, the one was crying in the bathroom at the Capitol before he went home last night. He told his people in his community he was going to vote for it when he got done meeting with them last week. And he came up, and Brian Gosh and Jim Bolin and these guys put pressure on him, and he switched. And he was crying yesterday morning to a friend of mine that talked to him. I just think what he's figured out is he's been lied to. And the one other one I'm thinking of, he was just always skeptical of numbers, and in fact, yesterday, a friend emailed him some very detailed information about that these figures lie and liars figure thing, that 50% thing, you can have by the way, that's not as clean of a number as for a number of reasons we can talk about. How much are you spending versus what is the pay that gets down, or is it because of too many schools, or whatever the issue is. But there's some really good research out there on the topic, and a friend of mine emailed that to this other representative last night, and I know he's very seriously that if he flips, I get $5. And some of them are going to just cave because of pressure, but I'm talking about the thoughtful ones.
And I'll just say, been there twice, seen the chaos, and just thank you both.
That was a great way that was built. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes.
I can echo that, but I just want to ask, how close are we on internet sales tax and trying to recapture that?
What day is it?
I know, it's like we've been talking forever.
We've been fighting,
Your dad.
yeah, but that legislation has been off and on in Washington DC for 6 or 8 years now, or even more. One day Congress is going to act on it, and the next day, it gets put on the back burner. So I don't know. And that was one of the first successful amendments that put on 1182, is that if we were able to recoup sales tax on internet sales, that half penny would, 4.5% would start working its way back down again.
I get it. So we're in a meeting and somebody says, we think we're close on getting the Congress to do that. And I said, really? I said, I remember when Senator Orff Smith said that. And everybody looked around because nobody knew who he was. He's been gone for 8 or 10 years. And I said, but before him, I remember Mac McCracken. He was at those meetings too, and they almost had him. Mac was on that commission before Orr was. Amazon's got a lot of money. Microsoft's got a lot of money. And it's really cheap to buy a couple committee chairs in Washington versus paying your taxes.
And I have another question about the education bill. If it appears that you're going to have the votes to pass it, do you see other no votes switching at that point just to avoid any voter backlash from a topic that obviously a lot of people support? Or
It'll be interesting to see some of those that run in this area. Who I know has told people that she understands her district supports it, but she thinks it's a sham, which by the way is something you put over a pillow. And I think she meant scam. You know, I just gotta wonder if some of those people won't, you know, reconsider when they find out that they've been lied to by their majority leader. We're not supposed to say lie anymore in public either, are we? Well, the majority leader told us to quit doing that. I wonder why that is. Yeah. In fact, I'm gonna tell them your story, because I want to tell this tomorrow. Yeah. I already told them, you say no, and now they're all gonna want to.
We have a question.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you what, let me tell you what this majority leader did. And this is the most disgusting, and it's on video, good.
Yes.
It's running. Most disgusting political act I've ever seen a coward do in a setting, and no leader of any repute that has got a spine holding him up ought to behave the way Brian Gosch behaved when we started this debate. He took the ethics code and copied a page of it and highlighted the parts that he thought applied and stuck them on Roger's desk because there was a technical institute amendment, and so he didn't think Roger ought to vote on this issue. Now let me tell you what a leader who truly believed that that was the case, what he would do is he would go to that legislator well in advance and say, hey, let's talk about this. Is this going to cause, because there's no legal disqualification, it's really about your own personal decision. Do you think, is there going to be any backlash, or do you have any concerns about the appearance of voting on it? That's what you do if you were a leader. If you were a scum pond, you would try and intimidate somebody who's not going to vote with you so they wouldn't vote. And that's what Brian Gosch did, and that's why he's a lowlife. And he is. I mean, I'm just tired of this. There's too much duck in this stuff, but that's what he did. And if you want to know why I got so mad on the House floor and took a piece out of his clone next to him, it was because first, my district mate got threatened by the majority leader, and I just said, you want to play Marcus and Queensbury rules? I can play that one too. By the way, his agency runs off government money. He shouldn't be allowed, he works for an agency, South Dakota Advocacy Group. He shouldn't get to vote on any bill that involves public funds because it might take money away from his pocket, so you should quit voting.
No.
You know, and just to follow on to that, you know, he made one copy, he should have made 69 more, one for every legislator there. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have farmers, we have ranchers, we have insurance agents and so on. There's not a legislative session that every one of us, there's a bill that someone does not have a conflict of interest. And I guess I'm proud to say that over the last 7 years, this is my 8th and last year, that I've been on the floor for every vote. I don't remember one that I missed. When you're on the House floor, you have to vote. So did he think I was going to vote against this? Come on. Anyway, you had a question, sir?
Either one of you think it's time for a new majority leader?
Hey, no, but I want to know, I'm not on that topic. I think I've answered that already. I want to thank an improbable person here. You guys won't believe me when I tell you this, but there's a friend of mine I used to work for. I used to run a bull float, building concrete bunker silos for a guy. And he's pretty hard-nosed, hard-headed character, very conservative. And he said to me this fall, and he used some language I can't repeat here, and he said that we needed to put some money into teacher education. He was all over my case about it. But then he said, and Ernie Edwards happened to be sitting to me the next time it came up, and I said, let me tell you what Mike said. And then Mike proceeded to tell Ernie, and none of it better go for you administrators either. And that's what you said there, Mr. Davis, to me. Because Mike Davis back there, he said, you guys got to quit screwing around. You got to take care of teachers in South Dakota. So I quoted you, Mike, a bunch of times. I was telling this guy wears a hard hat to these things.
Any other education questions before I ask another one? I wish Fred was here for this one, but it says, what made the transgender bathroom bill necessary? What have schools been doing up to now on the issue? And why can't the legislature leave it to the schools to decide this? This bill has passed out of the House, right? And the Senate is waiting.
Fred's bill is on the governor's desk right now. It made it through the House, made it through the Senate, and it's on the governor's desk. Why is it necessary? I guess maybe it's nothing more than a statement. You know, there were, and I don't want to answer for Fred, you know, what was his original intent, but what he was doing, I'm certain, and, you know, and I know for a fact that schools were handling this on an individual basis, okay? And I think the way the bill sits right now, they still can handle this on an individual basis or make reasonable accommodations. When that bill was first presented, I voted against it because I was concerned that, well, for two reasons. Concerned that it was an unfunded mandate to the schools to turn around and completely tear out half of the gymnasium and put in separate locker rooms, you know, or individuals or whatever the case may be. The other part of it, there was a section 4, paragraph 4 in the bill that talked about the Attorney General would have to defend in case of a lawsuit. I'm sorry, this is the age, the day and age that we live in. Either you do or you don't. Either side of that could end up in a lawsuit. You know, and I think myself as a parent, you know, a son and 2 daughters, would I want my daughter showering with someone with male parts? I mean, I'm thinking of this as a parent. Look, you know, what you do with your own life, that I don't want to get into that, but I think that would generate a lawsuit, and then again, you have the other side of the story that would sue the school for not being able to. So the school's in a very, very tough spot.
I support the bill. I think the attention given to it is the most overhyped attention of any bill this session. I tell you, if you read the bill, it is, it's a statement that 99% of South Dakotans are going to agree with. Boys use the boys' showers, girls use the girls' showers. If somebody's got a real serious problem, the school can make an accommodation. That's what the bill says. All the press about it is talking about some other la-la land world that isn't in that bill. Bob Mercer's got a really good, plug your newspaper for you, good column today, and there's a really good columnist in the Argus this morning as well on the topic, and I think the rest of it is a bunch of stupid noise. I'm undecided.
How do you think the governor is going to act on that?
You know, he's getting all kinds of pressure. That's where he earns, of all the things, by the way, again, this bill is, in terms of significant issues South Dakota is dealing with, I mean, I think it's an important statement of values, but beyond that, it's not going to move a lot of things in the world, and it's going to take up a ton of time, and that's sort of the way the thing works. It'll be easier for him to decide how to sign the education bills.
So no gut feeling about whether he'll pass or sign it or veto?
You know, he's a very contemplative person. I've not met with him this session. I haven't gone to dinner at the mansion. I haven't gone to his office and any of that stuff. I like being a free agent. But I know that he ponders things greatly and is careful to commit.
All right, more questions? Yes?
Representative Schoenbeck, on your amendment that you put on House Bill 1140, well, when did that clean that up for Representative Mickelson? And I know that got voted down. That was on the zoning issues and stuff on bonding.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the zoning bill now. Yeah, let me say this. I'm not picking a horse in the governor's race that's not even supposedly started yet, but Mickelson could probably give the finest speech he's ever given on the education bill. And I told him that just about gets you out of the dummy category with me. Because on the zoning topic, I disagree with him greatly. I think that there are too many people who think the Sioux River is an underdeveloped sewer canal. And they want to do more in that regard, and I think we have to be more careful with our natural resources. I thought that amendment that I proposed for his bill dealt with a very real problem that's out there, and it took out all the boogeyman. He has some friends that want to put their large ag operations anywhere they want. And I happen to think the laws are designed just fine to make sure that the public has input. And I'm a property owner out in the country, and I've got a right to have a say too. And his friends don't think that my 5 acres mean very much, and I happen to think they do. Not that anybody's trying to build a hog farm next to me. Our zoning laws are there to make the playing field even. He and I disagree greatly about what even means.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, thank you.
Oh, one of the nuns you made, Matt.
I was kidding about the ruler.
I change the subject. What's your opinion on the payday loan deal?
The payday
Is this
loan.
one I'm gonna vote for it or against it?
You're talking about the new product that's just been introduced. I voted in favor of it. You know, and it's quite simple. We hear all of these, using your term, boogeyman stories about how bad the payday loan thing is. And of course, there's a ballot issue or 2 coming up in November. It's no different than alcohol or video lottery. If you have a problem with alcohol, don't drink. If you have a problem with gambling, don't go to the casino. If you have a problem with money, don't go to the payday lending store. And this is a different product again. We're not talking about what we see down on Highway 212 right now. You know, there has to be, and I've heard this payday lending thing when I chaired Commerce and Energy as well. One of the things that sticks in my head was banks won't write you a loan for $200 because they can't make any money on it. And in order for them to make any money on it, and we have any bankers here? Hugh, will you write me a loan for $200? No. Why?
Credit risk.
Okay, so at what level would you be able to recoup your costs? You know, percentage-wise, would you have to get 25, 30, 45%? Those stores are there. Yeah, do they make a profit? They have to, otherwise they couldn't keep the lights on and pay their employees. But they're there for a very specific purpose. However, if you've got a money problem, there are a number of social programs that will help you manage your money. But if you repetitively go back there to get more money to go across the street to the casino, well, that's your problem.
Let me just on that, to take a little bit how the legislature works. Sister, it might surprise you, I haven't had a chance to read that bill yet. We're kind of busy with something else. The legislature is a fast-moving program. We slowed down a little bit for one topic here for a couple of days, but that bill was in Roger's committee, so he's had an opportunity to read it, debate it. I've probably got 50 emails on it, second most education, and I haven't had time to read it yet. I will read it, study it. I've saved some of those emails that had, substantive information in it, but I don't have zero idea how I vote on it. I got to tell you, like many people, I don't like all the payday lending and casinos. When I drive down 212, I personally feel it's an embarrassment for our community. But you know what? It's a legal business. They're entitled to do it. There's a lot of things I don't like. Packers, Yankees, and I have to tolerate them. But I would say this about the lending business. Credit will exist whether you regulate it or not. You have to pick whether you want regulated credit or Guino's credit, because it's going to be there one way or the other. And I don't know how that answers this bill because I haven't studied this product, or I didn't know it was a new product yet. That's probably an unsatisfactory answer, sister, but it's the best one I got for you today.
Yes.
There's an initiative referendum on this that will limit the lending to 36%. This bill that you're considering, is that going to supersede and nullify that initiative referendum?
No, And that, in committee, they were quick to point that out. Whatever's on the ballot out there stays. That's for the stores you see down on the highway right now. The bill that we considered is a new product, and it's a new product they call a line of credit, okay? Or a credit line, and you know, when you go in there, you discuss the dollar figure. There is a contract that's put on the table. Both the lender and the borrower have to agree on that percentage and the terms. It's no different than you going in and getting your mortgage for your house. That you're not gonna walk out of there with a handful of money and not know what the interest rate is, or not know what the terms of the loan is going to be.
So if the initiated referendum passes, then supposedly limited to 36%, can these payday lenders still charge 300%?
These guys are the twisters. There's a constitutional amendment too.
Yeah, there are a couple of measures on there. You're talking about that specific, well, it goes back, essentially, if that passes.
Let me jump in on this just if I can. If the constitutional amendment passes, it'll take precedent over the other, they're both initiated. One's a statute, one's a constitutional provision. So if the constitutional one passes, that's going to control no matter what happens with the new statute. If the constitutional one fails, then the statute will be whatever it is as a result of that initiated measure, if it passes or doesn't pass. Does that line the dominoes up for you? Lady over there is going, no, not at all. Sorry.
Okay, we're getting close to the end. Any more questions? Okay, Lee has promised to flip me a 20 if I give him a chance to make a closing statement. So.
I want to tell you that I'm going to be short. Yeah, 20. I'm only going to win 5 if I get one more vote flipped.
15 behind.
15 behind already today. The Spartans have had a saying that said either you return home with your shield or on your shield. And Roger and I have worked hard in that regard this session, and I think on this education issue we're more likely to come home with our shields than on it. I didn't think that when we started. This is Roger's last Cracker Barrel. He's been a charm to serve with. I want you to know that. You ought to all give him a round of applause. I've served with 4 different groups of legislators in 2 different districts, and this is the best group I've served with. The other thing that people don't realize when legislators serve, their wives serve too. He's in the back. You're going to be 5 more, no matter what. I think you ought to give his wife a round of applause because it's not easy. And lastly, this is my last one. And it's just, I just want to say it's been an honor to serve. I think about it like Cincinnati. It's just good to be at work and go home.
Thanks, Lee, our road warrior. You know, early on in the session, we start with these caucus meetings and so on, and with new legislators. And yeah, technically he's a new legislator, first term in the House. However, it becomes pretty obvious who the seasoned veterans are, and this guy's one of them. And it's pretty easy in the legislative session to see who the movers and shakers are. This guy is one of them, okay? And so we appreciate that, Lee. Thank you.
Work harder on the education bill than Representative Schoenberg.
Representative Sly.
Yeah, Jackie Slyby, there's no question, and Deb Solhold, they were the co-chairs of the Blue Ribbon Task Force, you know, and they did yeoman's work on this thing, and they dug and they ferreted out information, and they called in people if there was a question in a certain area, and they were a couple of real troopers. And so they're the ones that, the prime sponsors of the bill, you know, both the House and the Senate, so the 1182 and then the companion Senate legislation. But Yeah, my last Cracker Barrel, unless Megan wants to schedule one more while we're doing session. No, no. You know, I've been honored over the last 8 years to be your representative, and I certainly appreciate the support. There's been some good times and some bad times, but that's part of the game we play. And so I do appreciate it, so thank you guys.
And I've done a lot of these Cracker Barrels, and believe me, this sessions, they were the most fun. And I thank you for that, and the crowd we have been getting, crowds we've been getting this year is a testament to the hard work you guys have done, and we all appreciate it very much. And thanks to the Chamber for having these, and we'll see you next year with a new group of us.